Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our reading series as we continue to read the story Other Words for Home. This is Miss Ibarra. So, we are on part 5 of the story titled Growing, and we're about to start chapter 1. We call Baba on Skype so that he can see me, the new me. I hear his gasp through the computer as he takes in the image in front of him, his baby girl who no longer looks like a baby, his other baby girl who is getting ready to be born. I twirl around, partly to be silly, partly to avoid seeing the sadness in Baba's eyes as he watches us and takes in all he is missing. Have you heard from Isa? I ask, even though I know the answer. But it feels wrong not to ask. Sometimes I feel like you have to say things out loud just to remind the universe that you're still thinking about them. Baba shakes his head, his eyes downcast. But when his eyes meet mine again, there is a spark of hope. Look at you, Jude Habibti, so grown up, he says. I'm proud of your brother. I'm proud, and your brother would be too. My heart swells up with aching, longing, but it swells up with love too. Chapter 2. Everyone has a reaction to my hijab, like Layla's mother, who gently grabs both my hands and pulls me close to her, kissing me on each cheek and greeting me like I am a brand new person. And then there are the people on the street who never used to notice me before when I glided down Ludlow in my beautiful coat, but now stop and turn their heads, their eyes watching me like I am a ticking time bomb. Or there is Aunt Michelle, who pulls me aside and asks me if I really want to wear it and I look beautiful no matter what, but she hopes I know it is my choice. No matter how many times I explain to her that of course it is my choice and this is something I have been waiting for, she still casts a look at Mama like she is a detective who is going to get to the bottom of the case, when really there is nothing to solve, only something to be happy about. Something that back home would have been greeted like Layla's mother greeted me, like a celebration, a blessing. I know Aunt Michelle means well and that she has just heard the stories, the same ones that I have heard, about girls from countries nearby mine who are forced to dress a certain way, forced to act a certain way. But I want to explain to Aunt Michelle that this, my choice, is not like that thing she doesn't quite know how to say, that thing that she's afraid of, that thing that Americans often say, about and wait awkwardly for you to fill in the blank. That thing that also makes me as angry as it makes them. I want women like Aunt Michelle to understand that it is not only women who look like them, who are free, who think and care about other women. That it is possible for two things to look similar but be completely different. That I cover my head like other strong, respected women have done before me, like Malala Yousafzai, like Rehman Abul-Jadel, like my mama. That I cover my head not because I am ashamed, forced, or hiding, but because I am proud and want to see as I am. Chapter 3. Mrs. Ravenswood is one of the only Americans who doesn't act suspicious of my headscarf. When I walk into her classroom the first day that my head is covered, she smiles at me, looking me right in the eyes, seeing me. Hello, Jude, she says. Good morning, you look nice today. There is an Arabic proverb that says, she makes you feel like a loaf of freshly baked bread. It is said about the nicest, kindest people, the type of people who help you rise. Chapter 4. The day the results of the tryouts are posted, the news spreads through the halls like water that has burst from a dam. We all run, run, run to see the simple white paper with simple black letters that has been hung in the window of the library. Layla has beaten to the crowd, and I see her in the crowd of bodies, shouldering to get a look. People are talking all around me. Abigail Beth Malone is whispered with reverence, and I know she is the eighth grader who last year, as a seventh grader, snagged a talking part in the musical. For a moment, I'm jealous of her, not just because she has won the role of Belle, of the beauty, of the star, but because her name already sounds like the name of a famous actress, whereas I have a name that people struggle to pronounce. But the sour taste of jealousy, its acidic tang in my mouth, fades the moment Layla rushes over to me and squeezes my shoulder. You got a part! She shouts so loud that people turn their heads to look at us two hijabi girls standing in the middle of the hallway in the middle of America celebrating. Chapter 5. I have been cast as Plumette, the feather duster, which is not a big role, but it is a role, which is all that matters. Sarah has made it, but she is only in the chorus, and as Sloane and Harper and Mina did not make it, but were offered positions for tech crew if they want them. But Sarah thinks only Harper will work on the sets. Mina doesn't want to make sets, she sneers, and I know she is talking about Layla, turning her nose up at my friend. But really, Sarah is just mad that my role is bigger than hers, which is something I don't think she ever thought would happen, which is something I never thought would happen. I remember the acidic tang in my mouth when I first learned Abigail Beth Malone with her movie star name would be the lead. And I try to be patient with Sarah and forgive her for not being happy for me. Sarah has never commented on my headscarf, but on Saturday afternoon, when her and me and Aunt Michelle are all watching the movie Beauty and the Beast, a movie I have never seen but am already falling in love with, Sarah says, Plumette is supposed to be sexy. I don't think they will let you wear that during the musical. She stares at me. Her gaze is a challenge. She is asking me to choose between two things without realizing it is her and people like her that think you have to choose. The day after the cast list was posted, I saw Mrs. Bloom in the hall, and she touched my elbow and said, "You are you are our plumette because I can tell you have punch, my dear, leaders of it." I don't know what Miss Bloom quite meant by punch, but I tell that to Sarah, and she says, "Or because you have a thick accent so you won't have to even fake that part." And I know I should feel angry at Sarah, but I don't. Not really. Mostly, I feel sorry for myself because Sarah is right that I do have a thick accent. And I wonder if everyone else in the cast thinks the same thing she does. My skin feels hot and too thin all at the same time. But then I remember it doesn't matter. I have a role. I'm in the play. And I have this magical thing called punch. Leaders of it. Chapter 6. Mrs. Bloom tells us that the most successful plays are successful because the cast and crew become like one big family, all working toward the same goal. She separates us into groups of four, each group a mix of actors, chorus members, set design, and tech crew. Jude, right? The boy from my math class says, the one with the dark, messy hair and the galaxy patterned t shirts. I'm Miles. I look at his shirt. It's black with the photograph of the full moon. Miles. His name makes me smile because it is not a name I've heard before. And as he answers the first icebreaker question, an American term I have just learned, but I am really fond of, I temporarily forget about all the miles between me and my home. Cool, another girl in our group says. Her hair is a tangle of red curls and she is chewing gum, even though I'm pretty sure we aren't allowed to chew gum inside the auditorium. I'm Ruth. I work on sets, and I'm really excited about this year's play because musicals are kind of my whole life, and I can't wait to move to New York City when I'm older. The other person in our group is Ethan. He is playing the role of the Beast, and we all act like he is a real life movie star, even though he has a small piece of granola bar stuck in his braces. I think I want to be an actor when I grow up, but my dad doesn't exactly love that idea, he says. My heart pinches when he says this. It makes me think of Isa and Baba and how hard it can be when what you want runs against a different current from your father. I wonder if when Isa comes home, Baba and him will fight less. If how much they've missed each other will be enough to build a bridge across all their differences. Mrs. Bloom calls out that it is time for a break, and Ethan quickly moves in the direction of Abigail Beth Malone and the other eighth grade stars. Ruth takes off toward the edge of the stage where a lot of set design kids, including Layla, have gathered and are combing through a packet of paint swatches. Miles, though, he doesn't run off. Are you okay? He asks me. He looks at me like he is seeing all my thoughts about Issa and Baba. I'm okay, I say quietly. I was just thinking. He shoves his hands into his black baggy pants. That's cool. I also like thinking. I laugh a little, which makes him smile, which makes me think again about how Miles is a pretty good antidote for Miles. So, what do you think it would feel like to step on the moon? He asks. I blink. At first, I think I misunderstood him, that something is wrong with my translation. You know, he says, and I see a flash of embarrassment cross over his face. It's something to think about. Miss Bloom announces that we have 1 more minute left of our break. I hear the crinkling of potato chip bags and the shuffling of sneakers. My mind feels gummy as I search for an answer to his question. Words swim through my head, but I am unable to catch any of them. Fragments of phrases in Arabic, crumbs of English. Free, I say, even though it's not really what I mean. How do I put into words what I think it would be like to stand on a rock in the middle of a black expanse? To look down at our world and see it with new eyes? To feel so tiny and so big all at the same time? He studies me for a moment, and I worry he is going to laugh, that he will think what I said was dumb, but instead his face breaks into a wide smile. Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too are now my three favorite words in English. Chapter 7. Some days I still feel lost in the halls of school. I know where I am going, but I can't shake the feeling that I don't belong in whatever classroom I end up in. But whenever I walk into Mrs. Raven's woods, I feel safe. I feel at home. Ben is teaching us all new American slang words that he has learned. Bougie, he says, means fancy, rich. Bougie? Omar says. He pretends to dance and then laughs. Omar has a laugh like Issa's. It makes you want to join in. No, Ben says, even though now he is laughing too. Bougie! We all repeat after Ben, like the new word tasting like America on our lips. Chapter 8. Play practices start running later and later, so late that most nights Mrs. Bloom orders dinner for us and we take a break halfway to eat. I usually eat with Layla and her set design friends, but today I go and grab a seat beside Miles, even though Layla has told me she thinks he's weird, with his black t-shirts with pictures of planets and his baggy black pants and black combat boots. But I think Miles is interesting with his facts about space and his theories about extraterrestrial life, and his voice that is soft but solid, like rain on a roof. We are all eating pizza again for the fourth night in a row, because the school has some arrangement with the local pizza place. I would eat pizza 100 nights in a row and still be happy, I say to Miles as I grab another slice of cheese pizza. He makes a funny sound. I am learning that Miles doesn't really laugh, so much as he smiles with his eyes to let you know he agrees with you. Did you eat a lot of pizza back in, he trails off. Syria, I fill in for him, and briefly wonder if he forgot the name of my country or was too afraid to say it. Either answer makes me a tiny bit sad. There were a couple of places that sold pizza, I say, pausing to take another bite of my slice, the oozy, greasy cheese sliding down the back of my throat. But they were expensive, mostly for tourists. My family didn't really eat there. I watch him studying me again. And all of a sudden, my skin feels paper thin, like he can see right through me. I worry that he is eyeing my hijab and deciding that I am too different for him to want to be friends anymore. But then he says, I just think it's so cool that you've lived this whole other life. The most exciting thing I've ever done is taken my dog on a walk by myself at the park after dark. Totally boring, right? I laugh. He thinks I'm cool. A tiny voice inside of me shouts, and my heart does a victory dance. You have a dog? I ask. Yeah, his name is Sputnik, named after the space satellite. I finish his sentence. Right, he says. His eyes doing that smile laugh thing again, and now my skin feels thin, but in a good way, like it's more open to the universe. He tells me about Sputnik, how she has black and white fur, and her favorite thing in the world is to chase squirrels. Did you have a dog? He asks. I shake my head, and just when I'm about to explain that it's not because I don't like dogs, I just actually don't know much about dogs because no one back home had one. Mrs. Bloom claps her hands, bringing us all to attention. Let's get back to it, Mrs. Bloom says, and I give Miles a small wave as I head back up toward the stage to rehearse because I have a role in my American Schools play. Chapter 9. When Layla rushes over to me on Valentine's Day, I think she is going to share some gossip, and I fill with anticipation. I have secretly been holding out hope that someone would slide a card into my locker, a chocolate, or a rose. And whenever I imagined this, it was always the same person with his black t shirts and black pants and black boots. But my locker is empty, and that is there, and all that is there is Layla, whose face is filled with sadness and twisted with worry. And then she tells me about the explosion, about the blood on the streets, and the horror and the death. I am upset and sad about what she tells me, but confused why she is so fixated on this news when it happened in a city so far away from us. Be careful, Jude, she says, and I don't understand. She tells me that now I will learn what it means to be a Muslim in America. Chapter 10. I shrug off Layla's warning because in America I have perfected the shrug. Because in America I have come to believe that things work out. Because in America I have been cast in a play, and in America I have become friends with the cute boy who wears t shirts with the moon on them. I do not believe her. I do not want to believe her. But soon I come to understand as the glances shot in my direction turn from slightly unsure to plainly hostile, each glare demanding an apology, an explanation for something I did not do. That afternoon, I walk home from school because we do not have play practice, and I notice a man who is standing on the corner waiting for the bus. I give him a small smile, but he does not smile back. I look down at the ground, ready to be on my way, when I hear the shoes pounding on the pavement behind me. I glance over my shoulder and see that the man is following me. My heart jumps in my chest and it hammers furiously. Go back to where you came from, he says. We don't want you here. There is ringing in my ears, and for a moment I freeze, unsure I actually heard what I heard. I want to say something to make this man understand that he has no reason to be afraid of me, to hate me, but all I manage to do is walk away. The ringing in my ears stays for a little while, dulling from a sharp scream to a softer echo. I walk up the hill toward what is now my home. That's when I hear a familiar voice. Jude! I jump from the surprise. Then I turn, and there is Miles. He is panting, and his face is flushed from the cold air. I saw what happened. I didn't know what to do. I'm so sorry. I hang my head. Somehow it feels worse that Miles saw. Jude, he says, looking at me. That guy is a jerk. He squints up at the sun. It is a funny thing how a day can be so bright but so cold. I'm sorry, he says again. His words are jumbled, and somehow that comforts me to know that he gets nervous and flustered too. I just don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I say, when he walks beside me for a moment when we are both quiet. Where are you headed? I'm about to say my uncle's house, but instead I choose to be brave. Instead, I say, home. Chapter 11. It turns out Miles only lives a few blocks away from Uncle Mason and Aunt Michelle's house. He invites me to stop by to meet Sputnik, and even though I want nothing more than to go home and curl up in bed and pull the blankets over me and pretend I'm back home in my old sunny bedroom that smelled like jasmine and sea salt, I agree because I really do want to meet this dog. Sputnik is already outside when I get there, running around in the fenced yard. Miles opens the creaky wooden gate to let us in, and Sputnik instantly runs to him, jumping up and licking his face. Down, girl, he says, but he laughs, actually laughs, as he half heartedly pushes her back toward the ground that is still covered with frozen leaves. His laugh sounds like a joyous rattle. I would listen to it again and again. We take turns throwing the ball to Sputnik and talking about simple things, like when our next math quiz is and whether we think Mrs. Bloom is happy with the way the play is turning out. And then Miles says, I just want to say, and it's not that I'm saying I understand because I know I don't, but I do understand what it's like to not fit in, to have people look at you like you're different and weird, and like that's somehow a bad thing. He stares at his black combat boots and throws the tennis ball again for Sputnik. It's not a bad thing, he finally says. You know? I nod. His words drape over me, feeling like the relief of an umbrella in a storm, the comfort of a small blanket on a chilly night. I pick the tennis ball up off the cold ground, and Sputnik runs over to me with excitement and begins to lick my hands, her tongue rough against my skin. I laugh, surprised by the feel of her tongue, surprised by it, all of it. Chapter 12. Why do they blame us? I ask Layla, a few days after the news of the attack, when we are sitting in one of the back rows of the theater. Layla gives me the shrug, the American one, the one I learned from her, the one when you don't know the answer, but can't quite bring yourself to admit it, or maybe sometimes you shrug because you do know the answer, but it is too painful to say. Don't they know we hate this too? That we suffer too? It's only after I say it that I realize Layla is no longer my we. She was not raised in a part of the world where it is no longer shocking to hear about bombs going off in cars, markets, mosques. Bombs going off while people are praying, celebrating, loving. I ask why this attack in particular is so upsetting to Americans. Why not last week in Lebanon or the week before in Pakistan? Layla tells me it is because this attack took place in the West. She tells me Americans expect bombs to go off in Lebanon, in Pakistan, in my beloved Syria, but not in France, Britain, Canada. She tries to explain that it is like how we all expect it to be snowy in Antarctica, but sunny and warm in Tahiti. But if it snowed in Tahiti, that would be news, because it would be unexpected. But no one bats an eye when snow falls frozen in Antarctica. It takes me a while to process this. That what Layla is saying is that Americans think it's normal for there to be violence in places where people like me are from, where people like me and people who look like me live, that they all see people like me and think violence, sadness, war. That's not true, I say. Syria wasn't always like how it is now, and it won't always be like that either. I feel like my brother when I say that. His courage, his belief, his strength echoing in my words. For a moment, it does not feel like Isa is missing all the way across the world, but instead, sitting in this theater next to me, giving me strength. It is these moments when I miss him the most. I wonder if wherever he is, if he is thinking about me, about Mama and her swollen belly, about Baba all alone at his store. When I was younger and I used to get upset, Issa would say to me, "Too much sunshine makes a desert." I wonder, though, if it is possible for there to be too much rain. I am starting to feel like I am drowning, like I don't know how much longer I can stay afloat. Chapter 13. I am walking home from school with Miles when I see it. Terrorists. The red paint glistens in the winter sunlight like jewels, like blood. It is splashed across the storefront of Layla's parents' restaurant. I do not realize I have bent over and clutching my stomach until Miles says, "What's wrong?" His eyes follow mine, and then he sees the awful paint. He shakes his head angrily, his eyes hard. "Whoever did that is an awful person. Whoever did that is a terrorist," I say. And then I bite my tongue so hard I can taste blood. I look back at the bright red paint. Terrorist. My vision blurs with tears. For the first time since I've been in America, I wish I didn't read English. Chapter 14. I tell Mama what has happened. She pretends to receive the news calmly, but she forgets that her eyes speak. They show her anger and her fear. She pulls me into a hug and rubs small circles on my back. "Why do they hate us?" I ask, my voice foggy with tears. "Jude." Her tone is sharp. I straighten my posture. "This is not about you. It is about one person's ignorance and fear." "It feels like it's about me. I feel like it's about all of us," I say. She rubs my back again. There is something so comforting about the infinite nature of circles. "We need to be strong for Layla." I know she is right. I also know that she means I need to be strong for her, for me. I miss Issa. He would know what to do. Mama takes a deep breath. "Your brother would let his anger guide him. You are more level-headed. That will help you better navigate situations like this. You are strong too, Jude." Sometimes talking to Mama reminds me of a feather duster brushing dirt away from a mirror. She doesn't give you anything new, but she helps you better see what is already there. "What can we do?" I ask, and I'm asking not only about how we can help Layla and her family, but how we can continue to live in this world where we don't even know if my brother is safe. "We'll figure it out," Mama says to me, squeezing my hand. "Together." Chapter 15. I try to talk to Layla, but she doesn't want to talk about it. "Forget it, Jude," she snaps. "I only want to help." I am standing in the entrance of her parents' restaurant. They are paying someone to scrub off the paint, but I am slowly realizing that no amount of money is enough to scrub away the hate. I sit down in the front booth, and she reluctantly sits down in front of me. "You're lucky, Jude." "Please don't start that again," I say. "No," she says. Her voice has the force of a windstorm. "You belong somewhere. I don't belong anywhere. Not here, not there." "That's not true," I say, but my voice is weak, like a gasp of air. I want to tell her that what she's saying isn't true, but I can tell that she doesn't want me to say anything. She is asking simple questions with hard answers. All she wants is for me to listen. In my months of speaking English while still thinking, still dreaming in Arabic, I have learned that sometimes the simplest things are the hardest things to say, that sometimes there is no word for what you feel, no word in any language. "Here, I'll always look like the guy who did it, or look like someone the guy who did it loves," Layla says. I can feel her drifting from me, and I want to pull her back, but I don't know how. She is drawing a line between us that does not need to be drawn. But if I go there, she finally says, I'll always be the American. So you see, I don't belong anywhere. You have me, I say, until you leave. Those 3 words pierce us both. I shake my head, and then I do what she expects me to do. I leave. Chapter 16. Layla doesn't want to talk to me the next week. Not at school in the hallway when I see her standing by her locker with her friend Kate, talking about their upcoming quiz in science. Not at play practice where she sits with Ruth and the other set designers and pretends I'm not there when I walk right up to her. Whenever I approach her, she turns away. I try to pretend like it doesn't bother me. I focus on memorizing my 2.5 lines over and over again. I focus on getting into the role of a feather duster who has a crush on a candlestick, who sometimes notices she exists and sometimes doesn't. There are parts of her character I cannot relate to. I am not flirty and confident in the way she is, but I try to pretend to be. I work on understanding her better by leaning into the parts of her that I do understand. The desire to be seen, to be noticed, to be heard. As I pretend to have Plumette's confidence, as I put my hand on my hip and jut it out, I glance around to see if Layla sees me. But whenever I look in her direction, she isn't looking back. Chapter 17. Are you nervous? Grace asks me. We are having what Mrs. Ravenswood calls a free chat where we all talk about anything we want. The only rule is we have to say everything in English. I'd be terrified. She smiles, and I can tell she is proud of the big English word she just used. I like the word terrified, not because of what it means, but because it actually feels like the word it is. When you say it, you hear the terror, taste it. I shake my head and say, I'm excited, even though I am nervous about the play. I'm nervous about forgetting my 2.5 lines. I'm nervous about messing up in front of everyone, about letting Mrs. Bloom down, about giving everyone a reason to think she was wrong to give me a role. I'm excited too, Grace says. We're all going to come see you. She glances over at Ben and Omar, who are busy talking about the arcade games at the pizzeria nearby our school, where Omar has been going with some new friends and is trying to convince Ben to come along. They're coming too, Grace says when she can't get their attention. Are you sure? She smiles a little. They said they would. Omar said it better not be boring. At this, Ben and Omar snap to attention. It's not going to be boring, right, Jude? It's going to be dope. Dope? I say, trying out another new word. Dope means something amazing, something really cool, Ben explains. Mrs. Ravenswood speaks for the first time in a long time. Care to tell us something else you find to be dope? Hearing Mrs. Ravenswood say that word makes us all smile. The duck hunt game at Mario's, Omar says. Music, Grace says. Any type in particular? Mrs. Ravenswood asks. Grace's face flushes red, and she whispers, Rock and roll? Really? I ask Grace. Her face is still red, but she nods. She starts to rattle off the names of American bands I have never heard of. That's dope, Grace, Ben says, and we all laugh. I like how in Mrs. Ravenswood's room we are still always learning, not only words, but also about each other. Chapter 18. We are practicing one of the big group numbers where almost the entire cast, including the chorus, is on stage. I find these scenes the hardest because my feet have to move in the same direction as everyone else's at the exact same time. I am trying to remember the next step of the dance when I look out and see Layla in the back of the theater, her head bent down, studying the artwork on one of the sets. Before I realize what is happening, my elbow is colliding with Thomas, who is playing Lumiere, who bumps into Nathan, who is playing Cogsworth. Soon, the stage is a mess of tangled ankles and bumped knees. Mrs. Bloom calls out to us. Let's take a short break and regroup in 5. My face feels like it is on fire. I run off the stage and quickly escape into the hall. Hey! I hear a familiar voice call out. When I turn around, I see Miles. Is everything okay? He asks, and I shake my head. Want to go outside for a minute? We walk down the hallway, push open the door, and step into the cool night air. I shiver a little and look up at the sky. It is a clear night, and I can see a smattering of stars. Did you know that when we see a star, we are really seeing a past version of it because the light is traveling from so far away? Miles' head is tilted up. So looking at the stars, in a way, is like looking into the past. I wish I could look into the future, I say quietly. What would you want to see? My brother, I say. I see my breath in front of me, floating in the cold, cold air. What do you want to know about him? That he's okay, I say. That he's alive. And then it spills out of me. I tell Miles all about Isa and how he has run away to Aleppo to help all those people who are stuck in a war-torn city. How he has become one of those people who are stuck in a war-torn city. Layla is the only person at school who I've told, I tell him, and now you. We are silent for a while. It is not a bad silence, though. Instead, it feels right, like it is acknowledging the heaviness of what was said, and it's okay that we don't know what to say. Thank you for telling me. I really hope he is safe. Miles points up at the sky. Do you see that constellation? That's Orion. In ancient Greek mythology, Orion was thought to have superhuman strength, basically indestructible. Maybe it's a positive sign we can see Orion clearly tonight. I follow Miles' finger to the collection of twinkling stars. A message to us from the future? Miles smiles a little. That's one way to think about it. Chapter 19. One night after dinner, I find Uncle Mason in his study. I knock on the door and he welcomes me in. Why do they hate us? I ask him in Arabic, almost daring him to join me in this language that I wonder sometimes if he remembers. It was one ignorant person, Jude, he says, and his Arabic is confident and clear. It is terrible what they did, but you can't let their hateful act define all of America. He gives me a big hug, and it is unexpected because my Baba is not one for big hugs, and so I assumed my uncle would be the same way. He kisses the top of my head. You belong here, and so do I. The kiss lingers on the top of my head like a ghost, like a promise. I belong back home, too. Gives me a smile, one that says, I know. It's not a contest between here and there. You don't have to choose. Chapter 20. The postcard comes at just the right moment. It is the type of thing that makes me believe in Allah and the grace of the universe. Mama hands it to me, tears in her eyes. It is a small postcard with a simple photograph of Beirut on the front. In typical Fatima fashion, she has not written much, but she has written, and that is what matters. She is still my friend, and that is what matters. I spend a lot of time tracing the address on the back of the postcard. I now have a way to write to her again. I feel so much less lonely. Chapter 21. Mama beams with pride and puts her hands on her belly that is now so big it seems like it could pop at any moment. She has realized her wish of getting Uncle Mason to come to mosque, and Aunt Michelle and Sarah are here too. There are so many people here, all because Mama and her new friend and a few of her friends from the mosque have organized a fundraiser for Layla's parents to help them offset the costs of the damage to their restaurant, to help them heal. People are bidding on baskets my mama put together. The baskets filled with homemade mamoul and soaps made with olive oil and little bottles filled with rose water perfume. I make my way through the crowd room, sipping sugary tea out of a styrofoam cup. I find Layla sitting near the back of the room with a few of her friends from mosque who don't go to our school. At first, I think she will ignore me, like she has done for the last few weeks of school. But when she stands up, when she sees me and waves me over, I flood with relief. Jude, she says, smiles, and gives me a hug. This was so nice of your mom. I return her smile. She cares about you. I care about you, I say. Layla looks at the shiny tiled floor. I know. I'm sorry. It's just I was so angry. I get it, I say, practicing an American phrase I have recently learned. Your cousin seems to be having fun. I follow Layla's eyes to where Sarah is standing in a circle with some of Mama's friends from mosque, eating a pistachio mamul and laughing. Wow, I say. You sound like such an American when you say that, Layla laughs. We both keep watching Sarah. She is practicing how to say Taibe, delicious. All of a sudden, Layla reaches out and touches my shoulder. Jude, you're brave. You know that, right? When she says that, pressure builds behind my eyes. I worry that I might cry because hearing that makes me miss Issa so, so much. What is it? She says. Are you mad? I shake my head and blink away my tears. I tell her I was thinking of Issa. She squeezes my shoulder again. He's going to be okay, and he would be so proud of you. Her eyes wander the room and find Mama, who is surrounded by lots of friends, new friends, American friends. He'd be so proud of all of you. Chapter 22. After the fundraiser, Uncle Mason, Aunt Michelle, Sarah, Mama, and I all go home. Mama collapses into bed, so tired, but I stay up with the rest of my family. Uncle Mason is smiling more than I have seen him smile in a while. At the fundraiser, he met a nurse from Jordan, a store owner from Egypt, a data scientist from Syria. It felt good to talk about home with people who understood, he says to me in Arabic. Home. I am surprised to hear him call Syria home. I am happy that now Uncle Mason and I both call this creaky old house and Syria home. We all watch a movie on TV, and when it is over, I head upstairs, but Sarah stops me. Jude, she says. She invites me to her room. The whole time I have lived here, I have only been inside her room one other time. Sarah laces her hands together and rocks back and forth on the balls of her feet. I can tell she is nervous, but I don't know why. I'm sorry about what I said about Layla, Sarah says. I purse my lips together, unsure of what to say. I remember how upset I was when Sarah insulted Layla. I remember how weak I felt for not standing up to her then. But I also remember how Mama says that the fact that I can control my anger doesn't make me weak, that sometimes it even makes me strong. It's really awful what happened to her parents' restaurant, Sarah adds. Will you let me know if there's anything I can do to help? I think again of that proverb, she cannot give what she doesn't have. Sarah gained something tonight, something she didn't have before, and now she is giving some of it to me. I will, I say with a small smile. All right, everyone, that is it for this week. Make sure you check in next week for part 6. Next week will be the final part of this book. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. You can try to Google some different places in Syria to get a sense of where our main character is from. Thanks for joining.